accounts in the Bible, that gives us 24 different opportunities, say, to put our interpretation of Genesis 1 to the test. And the whole idea there is it's not enough to take the Bible literally. We need to take it literally and consistently. So one of the guiding principles I used in building the foundation for a model is to say, well, this is a book from the creator of the universe, and it's a God that can't lie or deceive. And therefore, in trying to build a model, it must be a model whereby we can take all of the creation content of the Bible and interpret it in a consistent fashion. And so if I am in my interpretations, I'm coming up with internal contradictions that tells me I got the wrong model. And incidentally, the way I tackled other holy books, which have only 1 or 2 creation accounts, sometimes 3, is that if I found internal contradictions that I couldn't get rid of, then that told me this book wasn't from the creator of the universe. But it's one of the things that impressed me about the Bible is I could actually see a way to read it with 100% consistency.
Now, Hugh, in these 25 creation accounts, did you say?
Right.
That many? Is it possible then, if you're not clear on a matter, say in the book of Genesis, that these other passages can inform and then help you develop your model that way?
Well, a lot of what Christians fight about over Genesis 1 are passages in Genesis 1 where it makes an inference or an implicit statement rather than an explicit statement. And that should be a cue to go to the other creation accounts and see if that particular topic is discussed explicitly rather than implicitly. For example, there are many places in Genesis 1 where you got one sentence only. And you go to, say, the book of Job, and you find 2 chapters worth that will expand that one sentence. Or, for example, you got a command at the end of Genesis 1. And we go to Genesis chapter 2, that single sentence command is expanded into an entire chapter. And so that allows you to develop a more comprehensive, detailed explanation. But the bottom line of what I'm trying to do here in chapter 5 is to say step 1 for building a model is you collect the database.
Okay.
And so what I try to do is lay out the biblical database. But then the Bible tells us in several of the creation accounts that he has given us 2 books of revelation, the book of Scripture and the book of nature. And therefore it's important in trying to build a biblical creation model that we not only look at the biblical database, we also look at the scientific database. And so what I do in the latter part of chapter 5 is lay out what I think are the most important pieces of data, the undisputed pieces of data that we see in the record of nature. Now, a lot of what's in the record of nature is disputed. And by the way, we're looking at a huge database given that we're now in the 21st century. And so what I try to do is pick up about 100, I think the list is about 120 long, the most significant undisputed pieces of data we see in the record of nature that I would argue any creation model must explain or any evolutionary model must explain. There's more than that, of course, but I'm saying these are the most important pieces of data in the record of nature that must be included in any model.
So you start with a biblical database and then you add the nature's database? Is that the 2 components of the model?
And the evolutionists might do it the other way around, start with the database from the record of nature. So I'm not claiming there's an order in any way. I'm not saying that Genesis 1 is superior, say, to Romans 8 in its respect to creation. I'm just saying, here's the data. And that's really what any good theologian or scientist would do, saying, without bias, I'm going to go out there and collect as complete a base of data as possible, without judging one piece as better than the other. Just simply collect the data. So that's kind of what I've done there in chapter 5, saying, here's the most important pieces of data that we need to deal with. And avoid the temptation of trying to interpret it. I'm just basically laying it out without any interpretation at all.
Yeah. Now, when you get to the interpretation and developing the model further along, let's say there's someone who says, I appreciate the work you're doing there, but boy, it seems like you're hanging an awful lot on there, namely the Christian faith. What if your model is proven wrong? What does that say about the truthfulness of the Bible?
Well, it may say more about my incompetence in trying to develop the database.
All right, that's quite an admission.
Well, I just say that because that's a risk we take, is that our model could be proven to be a failed model.
You're putting it out there. Yeah.
And people will say, well, if the reasons to believe model is a failed model, then that means that the Bible is a failed book and that the Christian faith is a failed faith. Well, it may have more to say about our technical competence or honesty or a character as researchers trying to build a model. And it could be that in proving our model wrong, we'd be proving the Bible wrong. But I say before you jump to that conclusion, you need to see how competent we are in building the model. And maybe you might say, well, they just didn't do a good job on building a biblical model. Now, I say that because I've known a number of atheists who've drawn the conclusion that the Bible is not a book of truth because of the failures they've seen, say, in the young earth creationist model. And so I'm saying, well, they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Just because you've proven that the young earth creationist model has no research integrity or credibility doesn't mean that the Bible, therefore, is false. It just means that that's a poor interpretation of what the Bible's trying to communicate in creation. Well, we're open to the same charge.
Yeah. You said previously that you expect that the model would be refined. Perhaps it'd be a larger refinement than maybe you would even expect at some point.
Well, a good model is a model where you experience refinement. A model that doesn't change is a dogmatic model. And that needs to be avoided because no human can claim to know everything. But a model that's experiencing bigger and bigger adjustments as research continues is a model that's in trouble.
Yeah.
A model where the adjustments or refinements get smaller and smaller with respect to time, that's a successful model. So we would expect that. There's going to be errors in our model. There's going to be areas where we need to refine. We're hoping to build more data into the model. So what I lay out here in Chapter 5 is the database as we currently see it. I would anticipate that 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to be adding additional pieces of data that we weren't aware of at this point. And that may force some adjustments in the model that we have. Or it may be such that we say, wow, it actually makes our model stronger than what we thought it was. And I've been encouraged that there's been a lot of that's happened, say, even since the time we brought out creationist science, is that these new discoveries have been very encouraging in showing that we were on the right track to start with.
Hugh, what is some of the data that you bring to bear in your model?
Well,
from the record of nature, that is.
From the record of nature? Well, I think what I try to lay out here in Chapter 5 is a problem I've seen with scientists dealing with creation evolution is that they focus on just 1 or 2 or 3 scientific disciplines. Now, of course, in a book that's only 300 pages long, I can't lay out all the data and the record of nature that's relevant to the creation evolution debates. I have to, as I said, I picked about 120 that I thought were the most important.
Okay, 120 or so.
But what I'm trying to do for the scientific community is I purposely put in that database data from all the scientific disciplines. So I don't think I left out any of the scientific disciplines. And really what I'm trying to model there is the importance of integration. That you're not going to resolve these creation evolution debates by only looking at biochemistry or only looking at biology and botany or only looking at physics and astronomy. We have to integrate across all the scientific disciplines. So I looked at each discipline and said, what are the most important pieces of data that need to be explained or included in any creation evolution model, but made sure that I included things from all the disciplines. So that people can get the idea of how important, just like it's important for a Christian to actually take into account